You have any interest in a Fifth Avenue candy bar? Just like every other time, there's going to be some spoilers.
Stargate. A Roland Emmerich film.
Stargate was released in 1994. It was co-written and directed by Roland Emmerich.
Kurt Russell, James Spader, Jay Davidson.
The film stars Kurt Russell, James Spader, and Jay Davidson. Kurt Russell you'll recognize from The Thing, Escape from New York, The Hateful Eight.
Why are you here?
I'm here in case you succeed.
James Spader, you recognize him from Pretty in Pink, Mannequin, Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
Where'd you find this? I've never seen anything like this.
Jay Davidson made very few films and did really very little on-screen acting. The only other movie you'd probably recognize him from would be The Crying Game, which if you haven't seen it, go ahead and check it out. And I say this non-ironically, it's got a bit of a twist in it, if you know what I'm saying. The film starts as a flashback in 1928, where a device is found buried in the desert of Egypt. We then move on to 1994, where when the movie was released, that was present day. James Spader plays Daniel Jackson. He's a PhD and is essentially an Egyptologist. He's hired by a woman named Catherine. He's been hired to decipher some hieroglyphs that they're having some difficulty translating. After a few weeks of work, Jackson figures out that they are not hieroglyphics that he's looking at. They are actually star constellations. It's at this point Jack O'Neill comes into the movie, who's played by Kurt Russell. At this point, it's revealed to Jackson that it's not just cover stones that he's translating. These are actually markings on a large mechanical device that was dug up in 1928. And now that Jackson's translated the hieroglyphics / star constellations, they can activate the device. And at this point, we see the Stargate for the first time.
What is that?
It's your Stargate.
We've opened a doorway to a world we know nothing about.
Stargate is essentially a opening of a wormhole from one universe or galaxy to another.
The beam has locked itself onto a point somewhere in the Kalium galaxy.
Upon Jackson's assurance that he can open the Stargate from the other end, this is when they decide to go on a reconnaissance mission to check out where the Stargate leads to. This is the point in the movie where if you're into all that aliens built the pyramids stuff, they're going to love it, because when they get to the world that the wormhole leads them to, it is another world kind of like Egypt. It's a big desert, there's pyramids, and we find out then that the god Ra is actually just an alien that enslaved a lot of people a long time ago on Earth, at which point they revolted. They buried the Stargate so it wouldn't be used again, so Ra couldn't come back, and that's where the movie gets interesting. Because Jackson's promised that he could translate a way to come back to the, essentially, Earth, you find out he just made a guess. He assumed that the constellation / hieroglyphs would be on the other end, but when they get there, it turns out they're not.
Your job here is to realign the Stargate. Can you do that or not? I can't.
At this point, we find out that Ra, played by Jay Davidson, is actually a pretty evil guy. He's enslaved these people and he's keeping them under control, and he's using them to essentially allow himself to have eternal life. We find out that Colonel O'Neill was sent through with a nuclear device so that he can blow up the other end so that nobody can come through the Stargate back to Earth. Through a series of events, O'Neill and Jackson figure out that they can use the nuke to blow up Ra's spaceship, thereby ending him and freeing the people, which is what they do. The movie ends with everyone except for Jackson going back to Earth. Jackson decides to stay and live with the people that they helped free.
What a rush.
Overall, the film's a fun ride. It's shot really well. The acting's top notch. I mean, it's got Kurt Russell and James Spader. I mean, how do you go wrong with those two guys? It should also be noted that French Stewart, who would probably best be recognized from Third Rock from the Sun, where he played Harry, it was his movie debut, so he's in it a little bit. He's one of the soldiers. Not a comedic role, but I think he's a pretty good actor either way. Now, the movie does have, well, I've got a few issues with the movie. So let's go. First off, issue number 1, they go with a trope. And that trope is the nerdy guy played by James Spader, the PhD. Of course, he has allergies, a lot of over-the-top sneezing, nose blowing, watery eyes, whatnot, the usual. Second thing is, it's not really a trope, but I just wonder, there's a big thing put into having the Fifth Avenue candy bars as like James Spader's favorite food. And I just wonder, I mean, in E.T., they did the whole thing with the Reese's Pieces. I'm not knocking the candy bar. It's just kind of like if you've had a Butterfinger candy bar. It's kind of like a Butterfinger candy bar. It's not a bad candy bar, but it's certainly not my go-to candy bar. And I just wonder how much Hershey was really, how and why they were trying to push this candy bar so hard for this movie. Seemed to make me a much more sense if he just liked Hershey bars, because those are kind of there and you get free advertising on them. But can't say as I saw the Fifth Avenue candy bar flying off the shelves after this movie came out. My biggest issue with the movie is the Stargate system itself. Now, I'm not talking about time and space or the physics or anything like that that would allow this to happen. I'll let that go. That's, sci-fi, stuff like that can happen. It's just basic problems that I have with the movie as far as how the Stargate works. Because on the Earth end, we've got all this computer stuff tied up to it. There's all these big cables going to it, power source. You can't be near it when it activates. And then we get to Ra's alien world, and it's just inside there. I mean, the Stargate's there, and that's good, and it's all locked down, but there's no power going to it. There's no, computer system running it. And James Spader is supposed to be able to activate it on the other end so that they can go back to Earth. But the problem with that is they don't show like that he's brought, other than the nuke that they brought with him, he doesn't really have much stuff with him. He doesn't have like computer systems set up. He doesn't have a power source. It just makes me go, how is he supposed to get it fired up on that end to send them back? Did they just assume that there was going to be all this computer stuff on the other end for them? Because that doesn't really make sense. And it's kind of, all he brought was like this case, this tactical case with a bunch of books in it so he could translate stuff. And then I started wondering, why do they need to do all of that to begin with? Why don't they just say, all right, we're going to send you through, we're going to send you guys there, in 24 hours we're going to reactivate the gate, then you guys can come back through. That seems to be a lot easier setup than sending Spader, because to me the big hole in the plot is, how is he supposed to mechanically make it work on the other end anyway? They yell at him for assuming he'd be able to find the hieroglyphs / constellations to make it fire up again. But what was his power source going to be? What was his computer system setup going to be? How is he going to get the whole thing running on that end? I've never been able to really figure that out. So if you've got an answer to that, go ahead and throw it down in the comments. Like, subscribe, argue with me, do whatever you want. But, yeah, that's my issue with Stargate, is how the hell was he supposed to fire that Stargate up from the other end to send them back to Earth? Stargate is available on DVD and Blu-ray, and I would recommend checking it out. And if you really like it, go ahead and buy it, because remember, you buy the physical media, that way they can't take it away from you. The movie also led to multiple spin-offs on television, which are kind of fun, but like a lot of times it kind of seems to go on for too long, and it kind of starts losing the spin-off of the spin-off of the spin-off situation, But overall, I'd recommend it as a sci-fi movie. Again, I'm being picky. As I stated, I'm okay with all the physics that make it happen. I've just got these little details in the plot hole that bugs me. But go ahead and check it out. It's a fun ride. We'll be back next week with another movie to check out, or for one to me to complain about. And we'll see you then.